And we're live. And we're going. And we are 3, 2. 3, 2. Lady. Hello, everybody. And welcome to another episode of the Media Boat Podcast. Your weekly stop talk for movies, TV, music, and video games. Not necessarily in that order. My name is Mike. His name is Matt.
My name is Matt. His name is Mike. Yes, we never stop talking. That's how stop talk this is. Thank you for joining us.
At times we really don't stop talking when we have to stop ourselves.
It's true. We go long. Today is May the 6th. May the 6th be with you.
Revenge of the 6th.
Yes, Revenge of the 6th, whatever you want to call it. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 383.
Two.
There's one off. 382. Thank you. We're back in person. We've returned from the deserts. We're here to give you a proper podcast, and we have a lot to talk about. So let's just jump right into it with the music.
And we always start music with the Billboard, and we start the Billboard with the Hot 100. And at number 1, Last Night by Morgan Wallen.
Back at number 1 this week.
At number 2, Kill Bill by SZA. Coming in at 3, Flowers by Miley Cyrus. At 4, Ella Baya Sola by Esteban Armando.
That's an L.
Esteban? That's an L?
Yeah.
No, T. Esteban.
That's an L.
Okay, Esteban Armando.
You're wearing your glasses.
Cross. Peso Pluma.
Yes.
And at number 5, Un Cross 102 by Grupo Frontera. Cross Bad Bunny.
How many crosses are we going to do today?
Cross.
So many crosses.
Cross.
Thank you for that. What about the Billboard 200?
Your albums chart, your Billboard 200. At number 1, One Thing at a Time by Morgan Wallen. Coming at 2, Today by August D. Okay, that could be D-Day.
Yeah, could be.
Or Stutter Today. At 3, Folklore, The Long Pond Sessions by Taylor Swift.
A Record Store Day exclusive.
At number, which we talked about last week.
We did.
At number 4, Midnights by Taylor Swift. And rounding out your top 5, Don't Try This at Home by Young Boy, Never Broke Again. If you didn't listen to any of those albums, or if you didn't get your hands on the Taylor Swift record, we have new releases, including The Love Invention by Alison Goldfrapp. Love me some Goldfrapp at Starbucks.
Sounds good.
And Step Into the Light by Acacia Strain.
Yep. That's it.
Just 2.
Yeah, not that many big releases this week.
That's okay, because there's a surprise release announcement.
Yes.
That happened last night, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. In the middle of Nashville, you may have heard tears, cheers, jeers, cries, tries, buys, thighs, lies, and more guys.
Oh, sure. Something like that.
Scream out in anger or frustration, as they now have to wait 2 months for Taylor Swift's next Taylor's Version album.
Yes. She said to her fans, drop everything now.
Yes, because Taylor Swift let fans in her hometown of Nashville know that they are the first, not they're the first, but they're the first to know about the official news that Speak Now will be the next album in her Taylor's Version series of re-recorded albums. Swift is giving fans plenty of time to pre-order the Violet vinyl. She revealed that it's coming in all formats July 7th. Hey, 7 and 7.
Yeah.
Also, July 9th.
Exactly. That's the joke.
Yes.
She mentioned that at the thing. She was on her tweet about it. She was like, yes, that's 2 days before July 9th. Wink, wink. If you know, you know.
So she said to fans, and to Screams and to fans, quote, I think rather me speaking about it, I thought as fans realized from the language that the long-awaited announcement was at hand. I thought I would show you So if you would direct your attention to the big screens behind me, there the album cover and release date were shown before Swift launched into the Speak Now tracks Sparks Fly as the surprise song on her tour.
So yeah, it's exciting news. We kind of figured that Speak Now is going to be the next release. There's a lot of hints, especially in the a lot of the videos that she released in the Midnight's era. So yeah, having a date and having an album cover feels good. Finally, it's here. The best Taylor Swift album, according to me, is getting its Taylor version. And so she also confirmed on the tweet that she released 6 vault tracks, which is not that many. Compared to the other re-releases, which makes sense because we already heard one technically Speak Now era vault track that was released as a Fearless vault track when it shouldn't have been. So this makes sense that there'd be like less material to put out there. So yeah, now it's just to wait. If it's anything like the previous releases, we may hear some of these songs early in a single capacity. Before the release. So I imagine we're probably just a few weeks away from getting Sparks Fly Taylor's version, which seems likely considering that was the song she did. So yeah, look forward to it.
Yep. I also keep getting confused when I see this trending because it says like Speak Now TV.
Yeah.
I'm like, TV? Oh, that's right, Taylor's version.
Yeah, Christy probably pointed that out before. She saw something about Red TV, and she was like, "What's Red TV? Like, is that a channel?"
Yeah.
I'm like, no, Taylor's version. Yeah.
But yes, we'll be listening to that in exactly 2 months.
So yeah, look forward to that. Summer's here.
In other news,
yes.
In lawsuit news,
hey,
take it to court.
Looks like Ed Sheeran doesn't have to quit singing.
Hey! Ed Sheeran was found not liable Thursday in Manhattan federal court on a copyright claim alleging that he copied key elements from the Marvin Gaye 1970s hit, Let's Get It On, for his own recording, Thinking Out Loud. The verdict that cleared him of copyright infringement came after just a few hours of deliberation on Thursday, wrapping up a trial that lasted just under 2 weeks. Standing outside the courtroom, Sheeran read a statement for reporters that made it clear how frustrated he felt at being accused of plagiarism and having the case reach trial. Quote, "I am obviously very happy with the outcome of the case, and it looks like I'm not going to have to retire from my day job after all," Sheeran said, referring to a possibly hyperbolic statement that he made on the stand earlier this week that he would feel compelled to quit music if the verdict went against him. Quote, but at the same time, I am absolutely frustrated that baseless claims like this were allowed to go to court at all. If the jury had decided this matter the other way, we might as well say goodbye to the creative freedom of songwriters.
You know, I don't say this often, but Ed Sheeran's right. This would have established some really rotten precedent that would have brought a lot more popular songs to the court for plagiarism. There's only so many chords, guys. There's only so many ways you can write a song. I mean, there's infinite ways, but also like pop song construction is based on a legacy of sounds and chords, and things are going to sound like other things.
Look up 4-chord progressions and 4-chord songs on YouTube.
A lot of people have posted those videos this week to kind of prove this point, which is you can do a lot with those tools, but ultimately there's a certain amount of tools that everybody's going to be using. And this is what Ed Sheeran is getting at here. Yes, was he kind of joking around when he said he would have to quit? Yes. But also there's some truth to that, because not only him, be a lot of musicians that would feel that we wouldn't be able to write music anymore if they felt like they were going to get sued immediately when they put out a song. So yeah, I'm glad that the court went this way. I mean, this is a win, I think, for songwriters.
Well, it's not just being sued, you know. Should you make a song and someone says, hey, that sounds like this other song, you could be like Olivia Rodrigo and have to put their credits on your song.
Right.
Post-release, and they get royalties off that.
Yeah. So hopefully this will establish a good precedent. That means that there's a little bit more freedom that artists can put out something that is similar or inspired by something.
Wait, you're talking about a court establishing a precedent about freedom?
I know, weird.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Yeah. It's 2023. What are they doing?
Yeah,
what are they doing?
I don't know. So, in celebration of Ed Sheeran's victory, he put out a new album.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was going to put out the album anyways, but it just so happened that it did coincide with this victory. Yes, you listened to Subtract.
Minus.
Take
away.
I believe the official name is Subtract.
Yes, but go with his addition, multiplication, division, equals.
So this, I understand, is a little bit of a pivot for Ed Sheeran. I've heard that it's kind of an introspective personal album. And of course, this is the one that is produced by Aaron Dessner of The National, who also, of course, famously produced Folklore and Evermore with Taylor Swift. So you listen to this. What do you think? I did not get a chance to take a look.
It's good that you preference that with Aaron Dessner producing it, because damn, it does sound like a Taylor Swift record at times.
Interesting.
It is a lot of introspective into Ed Sheeran's life, especially the last couple of years. Life on the road, dealing with a lot of depression, a lot of kind of different thoughts going through his head, through his writing process. Also, lots of water metaphors, lots of him feeling like he's in a boat surrounded by water, not knowing where to go. At times, it feels like he's drowning in water. Lots of times feels like he just wants to dance in the rain. Lots of water metaphor and analogies within this album. Was not expecting that. Also, it's a pop album, but not one of the big pop albums. Not like the stuff that he's done before.
I was gonna say, so it sounds like he's taking a step back from like stuff like Shape of You, stuff like, especially the last couple of singles off the last record, like Shivers and Bad Habit.
Yeah, and like Castle on the Hill before that. None of it is like that big and that bombastic. A lot of this is more introspective. A lot of this feels a lot more personal album, which I was not expecting going into this thing. It's an hour long with the deluxe version, an hour long with the bonus tracks. Otherwise, it's like 40 minutes. So it's a rather easy listen. Unlike other albums where it goes into like this heavy subject where I was like, okay, maybe I'm not ready for this. I didn't feel that way with Ed Sheeran's take on it.
Okay.
It felt more welcoming, and it felt more like accepting of not just his understanding of like his mental health and his struggles, but like putting in such a general terms and knowledge and songwriting and his ability to put pen to paper in such a general sense for everyone to understand is what makes this album better than what it probably should have been.
Okay.
I liked it. I didn't love it. But then again, I don't know if I'm expecting like stadium music. We're going to go on tour with this thing. Or more like Taylor Swift, Folklore, Evermore. This isn't the stadium tour. This is, I need to put this pen to paper so I can get it out of my head.
I mean, he probably saw what Taylor did because they are friends, and I'm sure they talk. It was probably like, oh, well, I want to do something like that, something a little bit more intimate that still has the energy that's big enough for a stage. Because that's the thing we found out from the Eras tour is that a lot of people wondered when those albums came out, is the Folklore stuff going to translate to an arena? Turns out they do. It's just in a different way. And it's the star power of Taylor that lets that happen. I think Ed Sheeran is one of those few pop stars that has the same kind of effect. And so I think he found out like, oh, I can do this too. I can do a version of the same thing. Which brings up my next question, which is, how does his kind of style mesh with the Aaron Dessner style? Because like Taylor, turns out, was a perfect match for that kind of vibe. Does Ed Sheeran kind of mesh with it in the same way?
Not completely meshes, because as I mentioned, every time like I could tell Aaron Dessner has hands on it, I was like, this feels like it could have been a Taylor Swift song, or a lot of like Taylor Swift inspired elements in like the writing.
Even elements of Folklore and Evermore had that vibe where it's like, oh, this is just the national song that Taylor just happens to be singing on. And we've more or less gotten that confirmed recently. There was a couple of songs specifically that I guess in an interview, Aaron said, oh yeah, those were just straight up national songs that we sat on. I gave them to Taylor and she reinvented it, basically. Like, so yeah, there's probably some of that here where it's just like, oh, anybody could be here. Like Matt Berenger of the National could be singing this instead of Ed, and no one would bat an eye. So yeah, but the thing is like the thing that wasn't the case with Taylor. She made it her own. Does that kind of make it his own, or is it kind of distracting?
It's not distracting enough because it does flow with the rest of the album.
Okay.
I think the album from front to back has a good consistency, has a good flow. Nothing like breaks that kind of train of thought process. So like in total, like a full album going from start to finish, it's a good album.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like
I was gonna say, do you think how does this compare with Ed Sheeran? Because if this is a folklore style pivot, is this you see him doing more of this, or do you think that he's going to go back to more of a pop-minded sensibility?
Hard to say because I could easily see a Blink-182 kind of essence where he's like, "Oh, you want a pop song? I'll write you a damn pop song."
Yeah.
I
mean, you even saw Taylor do that with Midnights, even though it's a different kind of pop album. So yeah, it's an interesting experiment. Then it sounds like it seems to work most of the time.
Most of the time, it does work. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's too long or overstays its welcome either, which I kind of like.
That's good. All right.
Yeah, it's cool. Definitely check it out. You'll probably get your own takes of it. Mileage may vary heavily on it, because it's subject material. But not a terrible album.
All right. Yeah. Cool. That's Subtract Ed Sheeran.
Minus dash hyphen. However you want to read it.
You also have, I'm sure, some road stories to tell because you have returned from Stagecoach where you were last week.
Yes. So last one, it's hot as balls.
Yeah.
This is the hardest one it's been in some time.
Yeah.
105 every day.
Yikes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, my first question. How was the vibe around any mention or depiction of Bud Light? That is the biggest headline I've seen, where there was some drama.
So people were drinking Bud Light.
Yeah.
There's Bud Light carts everywhere. Bud Light stage.
Because that's what people do. It's hot. You want an easy to drink beer. Sure, it doesn't taste great, but you're trying to just get wasted in the desert, so you're gonna drink Bud Light.
Also, if it's the shortest line and you really need something.
Right, but were people making a show of hating on Bud Light? Were people like demonstrating their stupid, like weird ass conservative hate?
Not a whole lot that I saw.
That's good.
People were drinking it. I think there was less Bud Light shirts around.
Sure.
But there was still a lot of Budweiser shirts, Anheuser-Busch shirts, Coors Light shirt, Miller shirts.
Goes with the culture.
Yes. But one thing I didn't notice was that the beer cowboy hats, box hats that they typically wear were no longer relevant. Light. So I think that's part of like the bro culture.
Yeah.
Country bros.
They were worried the bros weren't going to buy the Bud Light brand stuff anymore.
Yeah. Yes. Which reminds me, I do need to show you my shirt that I wore.
Okay.
After. If
you told me you would be wearing it. You're not wearing it.
Well, it's Star Wars Day.
No, it's not. That was 2 days ago.
Well, it's Revenge of the Sixth.
Anyways, so who was the best? What are some highlights of who you saw?
So last week I mentioned that John Party officially inducted into the Grand Ole Opry Country's Hall of Fame.
Very cool.
That was fun to see.
Yeah.
Chris Stapleton.
Okay.
Did not expect him to close. Well, he was going to close, but I wasn't expecting to like his music as much as I did.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, he's pretty cool.
Turns out, yes, he really is indeed an entertainer of the year.
I like that song they did with Taylor on Evermore.
I did not sing it here.
Or no, that's a Redbone track.
Yeah. That was released 2 weeks ago.
Not singing it here, no. Taylor did not show up.
She did not show up.
She was busy.
She was busy in her own side of the country.
Right.
Yeah, did not expect to enjoy that much Chris Stapleton because I knew like of his like hits, but even like the hits that I knew of, don't know how they would essentially travel and translate to a festival setting because he's not arena based.
No,
he's
I'm
going to make you feel stuff.
Yeah, more traditional singer songwriter kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm. Outside of him basically taking 2 minutes to switch out guitars and everything. Where it just went black and there was no like intermittent like talk or jabs or anything.
He doesn't need anything. He just don't wait for me.
I'm gonna play my song. It's gonna be awesome. And now you're gonna wait like a minute, 2 minutes while I switch out everything.
Yeah, makes sense.
Brooks and Dunn, awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
Turnpike. Too many people at Turnpike.
Oh no.
they should have been put on the side stage.
Yeah.
Just overcrowded and packed, and they're one of the bands that I'm gonna love seeing when they eventually hit that main stage.
Oh yeah,
because they will.
They will.
Other than that, Kane Brown.
Okay.
We have to talk about King Brown.
Do we?
Well, we have to talk about how, one, bad it was.
Yeah.
Two, he didn't really know what exactly he wanted to do. And three, the crowd picked up on it and left his set early to go to Nelly.
I have heard some things about that Nelly show. Apparently, that was the showstopper, the place to be.
Yes.
Which is very weird. Like Stagecoach.
Yeah, Stagecoach and Nelly.
Remember when we saw Nelly?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. There was barely anybody there. And somehow you put him on a Stagecoach stage and everybody freaks out.
And Flo Rida.
Yeah, we saw Nelly, Flo Rida, and the remaining members of TLC.
Yes.
And it was just like nobody was there. It was just like chill vibes. Flo Rida was trying to get people into it. Nobody was taken. And then all of a sudden I can read this headline. It's like, oh, Nelly, like, really brought everybody up, like really like was the highlight of Stagecoach. I'm like, what are they talking about? So you think it's just that it was a confluence of like, we finally reached this weird moment where the people who are going to these festivals are exactly our age and grew up with Nelly, and it's just now like we freak out when Nelly's on stage?
No, it's because King Brown's stupid.
I mean, he does seem like he sucks. Just saying.
I mean, it's confluence of having King Brown and Nelly at the same time.
Sure.
Like, there's the overlap, which normally they don't do that with headliners. But Nelly wasn't the only like non-country act there. Diplo was there. He's been there for a couple of years now. Yeah. And so this theory, tinfoil hat theory, is that this is their way of pivoting into not just solely country acts, because you have other acts that have influenced Stagecoach in the past, like Cyndi Lauper, like Bryan Adams, who was there this year. Ooh, great set, by the way, for Bryan Adams.
Yeah, I saw you saying that. Yeah. Or maybe that was Kristen. I don't know.
That's Kristen.
Yeah, on her Instagram story.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have all these, like, especially like legacy acts that aren't necessarily country, but have the name and cachet and the like Smokey Robinson, for instance. So people you don't normally like associate with a festival mindset are coming here because Palm Springs, desert, golf.
How do you feel about this? Because I've noticed that this seems to be a recurring theme in country music as a genre. It seems like there's this constant need for country to try to have these continuous crossover moments. And what it means is that they want to, I guess, ever since like you had the 90s crossover moment with Shania Twain, like they've been chasing that dragon. And what it translates to in a lot of cases is you have the CMT Crossroads series, which is let's purposefully have other artists from other genres come in. And then every year on the CMAs, they try so hard to be like, oh, well, we have this person doing a duet who is not in country music with this country music person. It's like they try so desperately. It almost feels similar to the video game awards, where they try so desperately to be this other thing that they drag in people from outside to be part of their moment, to add some sort of extra legitimacy, which is weird to me because I see country as this very specific thing that sure branches out every once in a while. I just don't feel like country needs to do this, but this just feels like another example of the country music industry trying to appeal to too many people, like trying to be too broad when they really should focus on what they do best.
Yes, but okay, so the reason that it's on Stagecoach is because it's a festival setting.
Right.
You need multiple acts going on at all times.
But how long is it going to take for this to be too similar to Coachella? Like, what is the line then between Coachella and Stagecoach? Is it blurring? Are we starting to see this line blur? Like,
I think you're seeing it blur more with rock and roll than you are with pop music.
Yeah.
I mean, Diplo being there is weird in and of itself. Yeah. Especially when he announced it in 2019, I think. We said he was going to do a Sunday set after everyone left.
Yeah.
That stuff, when it was announced, was weird.
Yeah.
But it is opening the door, and it is kind of like, hey, you don't have to strictly be country to come to Stagecoach.
But some of the frustration for me about this is that, yes, I agree with that in theory. And I agree with that in theory because there are artists that are within the country or on the fringes of what we call country or Americana, for example.
Can we blame Lil Nas X?
Maybe. Is part of that movement for sure. But like, I think there's artists that are on the fringe of country or in the Americana kind of genre that we could, that instead of reaching out to the pop side, we could be incorporating more of this alternative country scene, right? Mm-hmm. If they did that, I feel like that'd be a better move, because then you're saying, well, not only are we inclusive, but we're inclusive to this other sound. And there are certain, things in the country music industry right now that are trying this. You see that in the Apple Music My Kind of Country show. Yeah. They're trying to say like, oh, we're seeing these fringe acts, we're acknowledging them and trying to bring them into the mainstream. Weird segue. I'm going to mention something that I did in the last couple of weeks. I didn't get to talk about last week because it's not really stuff we cover. But I went to the LA Times Book Festival. And I saw a panel with a few people talking about their country books about the country genre. And one of the people on the panel was Margot Price, alternative country artist Margot Price, and she was talking about this and how like it's frustrating for her in a lot of cases because people do see her as this fringe alternative artist, and there's not really a place. She doesn't feel like there's a place for her and some similar artists because they're often told they're too rock and roll for country or too country for rock and roll. Yep. And so it's like, it's frustrating to me that the industry, in events like Stagecoach and in things like the CMAs, like aren't seeing that as an opportunity. Instead, they're trying to get the pop singers or the bigger rock and roll stars instead of looking at the wealth of opportunities they have within their own genre. I don't know. That's why it's frustrating.
Luke Bryan's probably as close as you get to pop.
Yeah, he's pretty pop.
In Stagecoach?
Yeah.
Or Elle King, I guess. She was there too.
Well, she's done the opposite in a weird way.
She went from pop
pivoted
straight to country
recently. So yeah, like I think that's just what I want to say, because like I feel like if Stagecoach has an opportunity here to bring in some smaller names that I think that they're whiffing on. Coachella has always been that festival. They always try to get those bottom of the poster like bands to break. I feel like Stagecoach has an opportunity to do that, and they're not doing it. Instead, they're getting Nelly.
Yeah, it's also a difference between what's going to attract people. Because you don't want to get strictly blues, country grass, country acts, but you need to mix in with kind of like the country pop.
But what Coachella does is that they have the big names to draw.
They also have multiple stages, though.
It's supposed to be like a trickle down, right?
Yes.
And I feel like that Stagecoach, if they expanded a little bit, that's a good point. If they expanded, brought more stages, then maybe you could have that trickle down effect. Maybe somebody who's there for Luke Bryan will tune in for a Margot Price. We'll turn in for a Caitlin Butts, who was there this year. But like, that's what I'm talking about. Is like there's more of an opportunity there, and so it saddens me almost that they're not taking those risks, and instead they're just being like, I don't know, who do we get? Nelly.
Speaking of Caitlin Butts, headlined the Bud Light tent.
Hey,
and that back around.
Good for her. Full circle. All right, so there you go.
Yes.
One Stagecoach.
Yeah, one huge thing about Stagecoach note this year is that they switched up the stage.
Okay.
Normally it faces east to west. This year they faces north south, the way Coachella's done it. For some reason they didn't want to move the stage. I don't know. I didn't like it. I thought it was too chaotic, and people kept running into people because there's no set boundaries, and they need to fix that. I hope they go back to the way it was last year or the previous years.
Well, perhaps you will find out. Well, it might be a little more complicated next year.
Yes. Morgan Wallen might show up.
Yeah, you don't want your child seeing that.
No.
Yeah, let's move on.
All right, let's move on then into video games.
Very excited for today's video game section.
Yes. But before we get there, we have to start with new releases.
Yes.
Starting with Darkest Dungeon 2. Darkeninger.
No, there's no subtitle.
Well, you already have the Darkest Dungeon, but you're having a sequel to Darkest Dungeon.
They could just have called it Darker Dungeon, but I guess you can't do that because it was already the Darkest Dungeon.
Yes.
You can't get darker than that.
Can't get darker than Darkest?
No.
Turns out. You call it Void, I guess.
Void Dungeon is actually a really cool name. Should have done that.
That's coming out for the PC. We also have Fuga, Melodies of Steel 2.
It's on everything.
For everything. Wide release.
I don't know what that is, but it's on everything.
We also have TT Isle of Man, Ride on the Edge 3.
It's a racing game.
Yes, this is a motorbike game.
Yeah.
I know what Isle of Man is.
It's a place.
Well, one,
and also it's where they race.
The GP motorbikes.
Right.
That's out for everything.
Is that what that couple was watching when we were at the restaurant?
Yes. That's what they wanted to watch.
Yeah.
Except the XFL was on.
Right.
You need to watch the XFL.
Way more important, apparently.
Yes. All right. And then that's it.
No, there's one big release this week.
What?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That was already released.
Well, we'll get there.
Well, we'll get there right now. Because Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom for the Switch, big release this week.
Yes.
Or, if you've been paying attention online,
well, yeah,
has already been released and leaked online.
It's been leaked.
Okay. So, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom has leaked online nearly 2 weeks ahead of its official release date.
It's an old story.
On Monday, images and videos appearing to show the opening section of the game began being widely shared across social media sites and private Discord channels. One player even streamed the game on Twitch for around 30 minutes before the channel was removed, quote, at the request of the copyright holder.
Yeah.
Of particular concern to Nintendo will be that some of the shared media claims to show the highly anticipated Nintendo Switch sequel running via a PC emulator.
Mm-hmm.
Unsurprisingly, those looking to avoid story and gameplay spoilers before the official release on May 12th may want to tread carefully on social media for the next couple of days.
Yeah. So a couple things is, yes, one, this will be coming in so hot, we probably won't be able to talk about it next week.
No, it's not on my list.
2 weeks?
Maybe.
But also, yeah, this is lame because I'm sure a lot of people are very excited for this game and are going to hate that they can't even look at Twitter mentions about it because they're afraid to see
not that
spoilers.
you should be looking at Twitter anyway.
No, but yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be like dodging things for the next 6 days, which people are not, going to be happy about because this is a very anticipated game. The other half of this is, yes, this is a show of where we're at, the state of the Switch right now, which is that thing has been blown wide open. Even games that aren't even out are already on PC emulators. It's like Nintendo has another problem. It seems like every single time that they try to put out a new console and try to make it more secure and less prone to hacking, it doesn't work. They get hacked and torn apart so fast every single time. We saw this with the DS, we saw this with the 3DS, and now we're seeing it with the Switch. It's just like it's just getting less likely that a Nintendo platform is not going to just be immediately emulated, which sucks for Nintendo. Yeah, we don't have time to get into the stuff that happened recently with the ROM, with the other Bowser.
Yes, other Bowser.
Not the one that works for them, but the one that was part of the a company that was releasing ROMs.
The one where he has to pay 30% of his paycheck for life.
Yeah, so
Nintendo.
We didn't have this as a news story the last couple of weeks, but yes, decided this was a good time to mention it now. That's way too harsh of a punishment, I think, for Nintendo to give out to this dude. And he wasn't even the guy from the operation that was actually. He was just like a marketing guy. They couldn't even get the real dude because I guess he's in France and he was like dodging them every step of the way. So yeah, like it's just a weird moment for Nintendo where they have this really big, huge release coming out that's going to be a huge sales success for them, huge critical success probably. It's going to be the Switch game, and then they have to deal with this. Plus, on top of that, the PR for this, this situation with this guy is way terrible. Just such a complicated stew of things for Nintendo to deal with all at once, and for fans of Nintendo to deal with, because I get there's a lot of conflicted feelings right now about like, yeah, I'm excited for Zelda, but dude, they have to stop like just completely ruining lives over this stupid piracy stuff. It's just it's a weird balance, and they're not striking a balance right now.
They can just put an emulator on a PC and say, hey, buy directly from us.
Yeah, they're never going to do that. Nintendo does not understand how the internet works, is the thing. They just refuse to have a modern approach to anything about how any of that works. And so like as long as they do that, they're going to view piracy as this foreign monster that's destroying their sales, even though there's no proof that they actually have that much of a loss. So yeah, it's frustrating. Does this maybe lead to a bigger push to release a follow-up to the Switch?
No.
So that they can work on a more secure version of a similar hardware? Like,
no.
I think maybe this is the moment.
No.
If anything's going to make them do it, it's money.
Well, yes, but hardware in development takes years of R&D.
They've already been working on that stuff. R&D never stops at all console manufacturers. Sony is making a PlayStation 6 right now. I hate to break it to you. They're all thinking about the next thing. They're always doing that. If they weren't, they would never make it to market. So yes, Nintendo is absolutely working on a follow-up to the Switch right now. But I think that gets sped up, I think, when this stuff starts to happen as in this rate that it's happening right now.
Switch U.
I hope they don't do that. All right, let's move on to the second story.
All right, okay. Across the other big temple of a publisher company, Xbox boss Phil Spencer has publicly apologized for the launch date of its latest big first-party release, Redfall, which we'll talk about in a minute here, and claimed that developer Arcane Austin will work on improvements for the game. The first major Xbox exclusive from Bethesda launched this week with a number of technical issues and has generally been reviewed poorly, garnering aggregate scores of 62 for the Xbox Series X and S and 58 for the PC version on Metacritic. At the time of publishing, the co-op shooter has user scores of just 2.6 and 1.9 out of 10. Addressing Redfall's disappointing reception in a new interview with Kinda Funny Games, Microsoft's head of gaming claimed the platform holder did not expect such negative reception to the game, citing internal mock reviews which allegedly suggested it could have received much higher scores. He also suggested that delaying the game further, which we should note was originally supposed to be due out in 2022, would not have solved its biggest issues.
Okay, so some stuff to unpack here. So this was one of the few times that Phil Spencer did an interview like this with a games media publication. I mean, Kinda Funny is weird because they mostly just do videos, but they do have an Xbox podcast, and this is what he guested on. He does this every once in a while. Notably, he used to occasionally show up at Giant Bomb's E3 couch shows where they would just have all sorts of game developers and personalities on. And yeah, Phil Spencer has a history of sometimes appearing at stuff like that. But now is a very interesting time for him to do something like this. Redfall just came out, and then also this is, of course, during a continued stress about the acquisition and whether it will happen or not, thanks to this new CMA denial in the UK.
Yep, which we talked about last week.
So I think some of this kind of, I'm going to give it to you straight, kind of real talk, is because he's trying to improve his hearts and minds reception right now when dealing with this larger company problem.
Yes.
So of course he wants the gamers to be on his side. So of course, yes, there's a little bit of throwing Arcane Austin under the bus here. But it is at the same, even knowing all of that is true, it is kind of nice to see somebody in this kind of power, place of power, to admit that there are problems with these releases. There are problems with the Xbox's strategy right now. And to be upfront about it is kind of heartening. As for Redfall, I'll talk about my thoughts about it in a second. But yeah, it's interesting to have somebody like this talk about, like, just straight up, like, yeah, the game is not great. Like, the game is underperformed. We don't know why. We're going to try to fix it. But we have to admit, like, on face value, people just aren't seeing what we saw. You mentioned those mock reviews. That's something every company does. Outside of video games, everything. Like, you know, you see it with movie screenings, internal movie screenings. You get, like, audience reaction, and that paints the final release. So, yeah, people apparently internally really liked Redfall. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to other people, because Yeah, it came in really hot. It came in like with some issues, and yeah, I'm glad that he's at least admitting it.
Now, this is one of 2 first-party releases that Xbox has on the year. That's right.
Yeah.
2 on the year.
Yeah.
The other one being Starfield.
Yeah, so a lot of people are talking about what does this mean for Starfield?
Mm-hmm.
Starfield, a Bethesda game, of course, Bethesda Game Studios, another studio that's known for releasing their products, at least in the past, as buggy messes that need to be patched eternally. This has also started to kind of spark this conversation within games media about like, should reviewers focus on bugs? Should that be what we're talking about? Or should we focus on the potential the game has beyond technical issues, assuming that they will get fixed? It's a whole other can of worms. It's just that a lot at this moment in video games is talking about games are shipping broken and why. Mm-hmm. Like, why? Are the studios not getting enough time? Is it a time issue? Phil Spencer suggests it's not. Is it a pipeline issue? That's what he's saying in this interview. Outside of what we talked about, he's also saying, like, is this a pipeline problem? Is this a process problem? Is Xbox Game Studios' responsibility now to rework how the games are developed with their individual internal studios? Because if the way Redfall was developed and pipelined did not succeed, they think that it's a systemic issue and they need to develop a better system in order for this to not happen again. There's a lot of questions about why these things happen and how to prevent them going forward. And I don't have the answers, and I'm hoping that Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo do.
Well, I think Xbox was kind of banking on them acquiring Activision Blizzard.
Yes.
Just in terms of like a release calendars. Because that would secure them with Diablo 4. Diablo 4? Yeah. 4 for this year.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm sure they were kind of hoping that there would be more resources that way. It doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon.
No. There's also a quote missing from this interview. I don't know if it was this interview or a different one. Phil Spencer saying that he doesn't see the Xbox competing with the PS5 at its current state. That when Starfield releases, that it's not going to get people to immediately jump ship to the Xbox.
No, he's right. It's not strong enough. They got off on the wrong foot, I think, in a lot of ways with this generation. That being said, still a lot better than the Xbox One generation. He admits that in this interview too. He basically says, like, yeah, no, we were aware that we came in second place there. We lost a lot of ground to Sony during the PS4 era. Like, he admits that, and the series in a lot of ways is a correction to that, but they just need to figure out how they can consistently release quality games like Sony can. And that's where they're failing. Sony can put out God of Wars and Last of Us's and survive based on the critical reception of those games. They always review well. Microsoft just isn't showing up to the plate with that kind of move. They just can't do it reliably. And all the games that they think will, they're way back in the release calendar because of how long they're taking to release, like your Perfect Dark remake, your next Gears of War. Those hits aren't coming fast enough.
Oh yeah, they are still making next Gears of War.
Yes, they are. Gears of War 6 is still in development. That is the last game in this current trilogy. They have to put it out. But when is it coming out? Who knows? They give the coalition a long leash with those projects because they want to make sure they're good. But they did that with Redfall too, and it still didn't work. So that's what they got to figure out. They're really looking at a crisis right now that they need to avoid, even though in the big picture, they're not doing that badly. It's just that they're losing the hearts and minds game. And Phil Spencer is the hearts and minds guy. He's always been. And so that's why he's concerned. So hope they figure it out.
Yeah. We don't have it on here. Did we talk about last week about Waypoint?
So no, we didn't mention it. We should briefly just bring it up. Vice is going bankrupt. And so part of that is that they have shut down a lot of their smaller websites, their parallels. And also they've laid off a lot of people, including, yes, as you mentioned, the entire staff of Waypoint. Waypoint will end on June 2nd. So it just sucks. It just sucks to see like such a staple of video game criticism just disappear because their parent company just didn't know how to deal with them.
Well, because wasn't even Waypoint founded because the previous company went under?
So no, not really. Waypoint was really a combination of a couple things. Vice did have a video games section before that, but they didn't have really identity. And one of the things that they did was they hired Austin Walker from Giant Bomb.
That's what it was.
To try to create an identity for them.
Yes.
He did. Then, of course, he left later to pursue video game stuff and has been there ever since. And they've kind of, they've existed. Of course, journalist Patrick Klepek has kind of kept the place afloat for the last 6 years. And now they're all out of work and they have to figure out what their next steps are. And I really hope they all find their footing because, it sucks to lose something like that. Especially when they were on a subscription model. Yep. They had launched Waypoint Plus, a direct-to-consumer. I was a member. I was paying every month. And it was great. They were making some great stuff there. And they were even profitable. They were making a profit for Vice. But ultimately, it's not enough to break even. This is a perfect segue into what we'll talk about later with the writer's strike, is the studios and have something in common with these publications, which is it's not enough for your shareholders to break even or make a little bit of money. They want to see exponential growth. And if you don't see exponential growth, you're seen as a failure. And so that's when you are willing to lose your writers in both of these cases. Because you see them as just a cog that gets you to that exponential growth. You see them not getting there, you blame them instead of this weird obsession with greed that all these studios have.
No, it can't be the studios that's the problem. No,
no, God,
it must be the individual.
Right. And so, we'll get there later when we talk about the writer's strike. But it's just a plague on everything right now. Everything has the same end, which is if the company's not making $1 billion, they don't think it's worth it. And they'll just shut the whole thing down. Sucks. But
Speaking of things that suck.
Vampires.
Yes.
They do.
Of course. Not the game.
No. Well.
Maybe.
Okay. So Redfall.
Yes.
As that story suggested.
Yes. Your co-op, definitely not zombie game.
So no.
And more in line with vampire game. But you can't say vampires though.
Apparently not. So Redfall. Arcane Austin, they, I guess, wanted at least Redfall to be this co-op game that's inspired by some other famous co-op games. It's inspired, but there's a lot of Borderlands DNA here. It is very much a co-op focused, power-based loot shooter. So you're expected to go in and this open world with some friends, use your power moves basically, and they're supposed to interact with each other in interesting ways to beat these enemies, especially these vampire enemies who are a little tougher and require some strategy. You're supposed to co-op strategy, figure out these combat encounters while you're collecting better and better guns as you go on, better weapons as you continue. And of course, there's a skill tree where you're leveling up your guys. There's some minor customization, so you can get new outfits and heads and stuff to outfit your specific class. And you're choosing one of 4 basically classes who have their own unique personalities and fighting styles. All that sounds like a good pitch. But the thing with Redfall is it seems like that was where they started and they just couldn't quite get it to mesh and for it to click. So it's a game that at first makes an okay first impression. There's some neat stuff with the lore, the ocean, time has somehow stopped on the ocean, so there's really cool imagery with the ocean frozen in time. On its face, it seems like it'd be fun, to go around shooting things. The vampires having a slightly different combat strategy than the normal ass dudes is an interesting idea, because you have to kind of go up to them once you've depleted their energy bars and stake them through the heart to kill them. Seems like it would lead to some interesting combat scenarios. I'm gonna go over here, stake this guy. You guys focus on this. Conceptually, there's a lot there. I like some of the stuff that it's trying to do, but the thing that they fumble on is the moment-to-moment feel. It never feels cohesive. It never feels that fun. You're doing these things just to kind of do them, which was why I compared it to Forspoken when I was on the stream. It has some things in common where they both have a good baseline. The combat in both is fun, is decent enough where you don't hate doing it, but you have to do so much of both of those things, and there's an open world surrounding it that just nothing is happening in. one of the weird things about Redfall is that there's houses that you can go in, and there's houses that are completely shut down. That there's no knobs on those doors. You cannot. So like you don't know until you go up to a house whether or not there's something doing it.
The game that shall not be named had that same problem as well.
Yeah, I get that. You can't make every single house full of stuff, but then if there's nothing to do with it, don't put it on the map. Is kind of my opinion. Like have something interesting happening. The loot's not that interesting. The way they do the approach to the loot does not make it does not make that much sense in a modern way. It's similar to the Borderlands construction where there's rarity and then there's also level, and that will depend on and so you have to sometimes think, oh, is this like common weapon that's level 5 actually better than my purple weapon that's level 3? You have to be constantly making those decisions, and you can only hold 3 guns at once. Also, only certain guns have stakes on them for the staking of the vampires. So there's a constant feeling of constantly swapping between weapons when I should just be sticking to the weapon long enough to until I need to move it. You're constantly thinking, oh no, I need this one. Oh shit, I need this one.
Why can't you have a stake as your melee weapon?
Yeah,
it has to be attached to a gun.
That makes sense, right? I think that they wanted to do more with this combat that I think they ultimately ended up doing. There's a lot of evidence of this was a bigger game that was pared down. For example, the skill tree is very obvious that something happened with the skill tree because you have stuff like, so the character I was playing, one of their powers was like C4. You can throw C4, press the button again to explode it.
Yes.
But what happens when you level it up on the skill tree? I don't know. It has a wider radius. That's one of them. Like literally, that's it. Okay. Well, what else am I going to be able to do with this thing? Oh, the next step up. Oh, it's like, I don't know. It does that, and also the cooldown timer is shorter. Like, that's it. It feels like there was more that they wanted to do with these powers. One theory I heard on a podcast was it almost seems like several of these were supposed to be one character, and they ran out of time, and so they just separated them into like 3 characters and just gave them all their individual stuff instead of having that one character have all these things to do. It's so weird. Some of the powers are completely useless when you're not playing in co-op. The final power for my character was, you press both shoulder buttons in to do a healing zone to create a healing zone for your co-op partners. If I'm playing solo, I will never use that power. So it's like, why is it here? Why is there not some sort of additional benefit that it has?
Some individual benefit plus a group benefit.
It's like there's so many steps into this game where I'm like, well, they could have just done this. Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they get to that extra step? They get to the precipice and they don't quite step that extra time. And so it feels like just this incomplete thing. Also, like I said, the open world is pretty much dead. The characters are devoid of personality. There's like a hub fire station that you go into. You can talk to people too, but they don't really have much to say. There's not a whole lot of like story here. There's like a baseline of story that you're aware of, and they don't really go beyond the beginning of it. Like as you start playing, there's just not enough there to really hook you. At the end of every mission, once you complete it, you have to return to that fire station, which is just a fast travel away. But it's like, why? You go to and all the cutscenes. Board. And also the cutscenes feel unfinished. The cutscenes are done in this kind of like where there's 3D models happening, but it's just the camera panning around them in like a diorama style. So it's like, wait, they didn't even animate cutscenes? Like, did they really run out of that much time or budget or whatever that they couldn't even make like a AAA cutscene here? Like, what's happening with Redfall? Then last thing I want to say is that, yes, there are some technical issues. I played on both PC to start, and then also I moved to Xbox to try to see if there was a difference. There's technical issues in both, but I noticed more on the PC version, which is why you see that slightly lower Metacritic.
Yeah.
There was one house I walked into while I was streaming that had vampires that were just chilling. And I mean just chilling. I went up to them and they did not like activate as enemies. I could walk right through them. They were just floating in the middle of the room, doing nothing. I shot at them. Bullets went right through them. They were not in a state, like they were just like T-posing, just waiting, and did not like activate in that state of like, oh, we're enemies now. And so they were just standing there. And I was like, well, I can't do anything in this house until I can kill these vampires. And even if I did, what would I get? yet another weapon I'm not going to use out of my 50 weapons that I'm not going to use. There's just such a lack of hook in this game. There's just no reason to play it. So I stopped playing it, and I don't think I'm going to go back to it. I don't even know if there's a whole lot more they can do with Redfall. I think just as a concept, they just didn't do enough with it where it's anything that anybody's going to want to play more than like an hour.
So another co-op game that you did play that you also bounced off of.
Yeah.
Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon's Keep.
Yeah, I like that better than this.
Wow. And you hated Assault on Dragon's Keep.
I didn't hate it. Don't get me wrong. I did not hate that game. I just said it was more Borderlands presented in a manner I didn't really love. And there were some important things that game does that this game doesn't. I think that the overworld kind of strategy is better in that game. I think it has a personality, whether you like it or not is another question. Redfall doesn't even have that. So I feel like Redfall is just not even close to having an identity, which is unfortunate because I think that on paper, this should have been interesting, and in execution, it's not.
Does it feel like Left 4 Dead, but with
it's not Left 4 Dead really at all, because Left 4 Dead is more like they put you in kind of a linear story mission. You have to get from point A to point B while fighting these zombies. Okay. This is not that. This is an open world game.
Okay.
Which means that there's really no stakes. No pun intended.
Pun intended.
Right. So yeah, it's just every step of the way this could have been something more interesting, and it just fails.
Okay.
So yeah, that's Redfall. I do not recommend it. It's on Game Pass if you want to try it, but it's probably a waste of your time.
Well, you sound like you jumped right off that.
Yes.
Game I have been playing and tried to stream.
Yeah.
Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Yes, let's talk about a good game that I will be playing more of.
Okay. So you've played this too, then.
I have played. I'm about an hour and a half in. I finished I fought the boss, the first boss, and then I've done like 30 more minutes after that.
Okay. Have you gotten to Greece yet?
Greece?
Yeah.
You mean like I haven't gotten to the next area. I'm still in Coruscant.
Oh, you're still in Coruscant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I stopped right before I'm about to make the about to travel to the next step.
Oh, okay. So I am just past that.
Okay.
On the second planet and haven't gotten to like the next huge checkpoint yet.
Right.
Huge story chapter checkmark yet. So I like where this game starts.
Me too.
You start as the actual Jedi.
Yeah.
There's no power reset.
Abilities. There's none of that. It's just like no, you get everything that you had at the end of the last game. Presumably, I did not finish the last game. Here, you start with that.
You get most of them right off the bat. Have you gotten to the new stance forms?
I got a new stance when I finished the first boss.
I can't remember I think you
the dual wield stance. I got that.
Okay. So more stances.
Yeah.
It's not just single or dual.
Yeah, it's not Darth Maul or regular.
Yes.
Goofy or regular.
Yes.
Like a skateboard.
You don't have dual wield.
Yes.
Plus 2 other mysterious forms that we haven't gotten to yet.
Right, yeah.
So there's a lot in this game.
Oh, yeah.
And it does start you off not at the Super Jedi that you were previously, but you don't have to continuously level up to unlock more Jedi powers that you previously had.
Right.
I like starting off with that feeling.
Yes. And you're getting more stuff on top of it.
Sequel done right.
Mm-hmm.
You add to what you already established.
Yeah.
You continue to build upon. You don't power reset. You do, however, friend reset because none of your companions from the last game are anywhere to be found.
Right.
But that does lead it to kind of story missions of, hey, what happened to this person?
Yeah.
Like that's currently where I'm at right now is, hey, we haven't seen this person in a while. Let's go say hi and maybe they'll help repair our ship.
I just got a cutscene where I was like, oh, this is a conversation. Like this is where we left off these characters. Now we're eventually, I haven't gotten to that point where we're going to go check them out.
That's literally the next thing you're going to do.
Cool.
But okay, we're going to start off with all these brand new characters. That's fine. And we're going to like slowly reintroduce the people from the previous game. Yeah. And I think that's kind of fun because it will lead to surprises of, oh my God, I'm being ambushed. And all of a sudden, hey, let me help you out here randomly. And it's like, wait, it's you from the previous game. I like you from the previous game. Welcome back.
Yeah.
It leads to those kind of fun surprises. There's a lot of stuff done right, but also, I don't know if you got any glitches yet.
So on the Xbox Series X, which is where I'm playing it, there's some screen tearing. I'm playing on performance mode.
Okay.
And I'm like, come on, screen tearing in a console game? It's a little ridiculous. Like, I can't turn on VSync. Yes. Like, it's a console game. So yeah, that's a little disappointing. But honestly, other than that, it's been running pretty smoothly. I have not run into that many technical issues.
After I got to the first elevator, the game crashed on me.
Oh no! I haven't even heard of that on the PS5 version. I actually heard that the PS5 version is the best running version.
But once I restarted it, I haven't gotten to any of those issues yet.
Good.
I have seen a lot of frame rate drops.
Sure.
Especially during that boss battle.
Now, are you playing on performance mode as well?
No, I'm playing on quality.
That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Because I don't have HDR 4K TV, so I don't need performance mode.
Yeah, but I like that. I think it looks great in performance mode, so I couldn't imagine if I turned that to quality.
Yeah.
It's like the Horizon, where it's like, it already looks good. I don't need to turn on the 30 frames mode. But yeah. I really like how this game feels. I think moment to moment moving around as Cal feels good. He feels like he's skating everywhere, but in a good way. I love the swinging. I love the climbing. Like, he feels like Mario. Like, it feels like a Mario platformer in a good, like in a good feeling way, where he's just so agile and he can do everything you want him to do.
There's one thing that they do on this game that they didn't do in the previous game. It has to do with the map. Not only can you open up the map and get the good 3D spaces move around with it, but it also shows you your routing of where you've been.
Yes, that's cool.
So you can see, like, oh, okay, so I've already gone through this area and I see my trajectory through here and up to here. Yeah. I know I can backtrack here, or I can do this over here now.
There's even a Metroid style like color coordination on the doors.
Yes.
It's like, oh, have I been in this door? Is it locked? Like that kind of thing, which is really cool. I love how it's like a combination, almost like a little dash of Souls, a little dash of Metroid, but like 80% Star Wars. And it's really cool. Like, just the vibe of it. The only thing that's not quite clicking for me is a lot of the story stuff. I'm not that big of a Star Wars guy. So I think that if I was more of a Star Wars person, I get more of that kind of drama. But like, for me, I'm like, it's fine. It's getting me from point A to point B.
Oh, you haven't really got into the story yet. Right. You're just, okay, General Senator at Coruscant.
Right. And I like the combat for the most part. I really had a come to Jesus moment in that boss fight, where I was like, I think with the stormtroopers, it's very easy just to kind of hack away and just not really think about the parry system or the dodging. I got beat up real bad the first round of that boss fight because I suddenly realized, I can't just go in and
Are you playing on standard Jedi mode?
So no, I'm playing on the one in between story and Jedi. Medium.
Okay.
Because Padawan. I was like, Padawan, I think. And even that is kind of kicking my ass. And I think it's because I need to slow down and play it like it's a Souls game almost.
A lot more parrying, yes.
And I need to focus on the parrying and just get better at it. But also, it's pretty generous on that Padawan mode.
Yes.
Which was the point with that parry timing. And so I think I'll get there. It's just that first initial fight, I was like, what am I doing? And then I figured it out and then I beat it. And it felt really good because I was like, I overcame this. And like, it felt really like a nice moment. And if the combat goes in that direction, I'm ready for it. Also, man, deflecting lasers is just always fun.
Yes.
Just seeing it hit them. It's just great. It's just so much fun. There's a lot of customization stuff that I've only just scratched the surface of. I just unlocked the workbench, and so I see that you can do like 1 billion lightsaber colors.
Yes.
There's going to be like stuff for like facial hair, and you can give them a mullet. Yep. And like, it just seems like there's a lot of cool options.
That's the thing with the first game too, is that everything in those chests in the world are all customized options.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to, you could completely ignore them.
You're right.
If you don't care about the customization.
I've seen that take too, where a lot of people are like, I just don't care about this stuff. I'm never going to touch my lightsaber color. It's like, well, yeah, that's fine. But there's going to be people who definitely want to.
Well, no, I don't want to like continuously upgrade and like change everything, but I like how I look right now. But I still do scratch that itch of it's a box. Go open said box.
Yeah, I'm very interested to get to this next planet because I understand that it kind of goes from a linear game into an open world.
It does. Yes, I got to that point where it does feel more open world,
and I'm excited to see how this kind of game works in an open world setting. I really am enjoying my time with it so far. I think they've really focused in on the fun parts of a game like this, and it's almost like kind of the thing that Redfall doesn't do, Jedi Survivor does, where it figured it out and then also went that extra mile to be like that extra step where it's like, but what would be fun to do? And it does that.
It's also helpful that it doesn't start you off with the power reset, that it gives you force push, force pull, which you had to learn in the first game. I thought it was annoying that you had to do that, but
you immediately get that power, that feeling of, yes, I am a Jedi, I can do Jedi shit.
Yes.
It's always fun to force push somebody off of a ledge.
Yes, it's also fun to mind trick someone into fighting for you.
Another thing I want to point out, just the last thing I want to say about it is I think that the first thing it does, which I think a lot of games now are starting to do, is it throws you right into the accessibility menu. And I immediately was like, oh, there's a thing that can help me navigate. I turned that on immediately because I am awful at navigating in video games. I'm awful at navigating in real life too. I often don't know where I'm going. And so I just immediately turned that on. And I've already noticed, the camera is kind of doing this after something to be like, you want to go this way? I'm like, thank you, game. And also in normal mode, it will say like, oh, look around this room to find something. But since I turned that on, now it's just like, icon just pops up like the thing you're looking for is over here. I'm like, awesome, I can just go to it. Because for me, that's going to save so much time and frustration.
Yeah, for me, it's when BD1 tops off your back and just runs over like, hey, come over here. I need to scan this thing.
Thank you, robot. Like, you're so good at this. What a cute robot too. He's so good. What a good robot. I can't wait to play more of this. I'm going to play more of it. It sucks because, so I ended up returning Resident Evil 4 so that way I could have a space opening for Tears of the Kingdom. But I'm going to play more of this for sure. This is good.
Yes. So look forward to more of us talking about Star Wars Jedi: Survivor as we continue to play it and stream it.
I'll let you stream some of this.
I'll probably stream it on Sunday.
Yeah, I'll
definitely have time on Sunday.
Probably done streaming that one. I streamed it for Star Wars Day. If you want to see that that should be still sitting on the archive on twitch.tv/MediaBoat. All right. Lastly, just real quick, I wanted to say, so Apple Arcade did a refresh this last week where they put in 20 new games. Among them, several Disney games. And one of them I want to talk about because it's a return of an old friend. Hey, remember Words with Friends?
Yes.
Well,
Scrabble.
What if Words with Friends with Disney?
But Scrabble.
I know, yeah. What if they did that, but with Disney characters?
Well, what do you mean with Disney characters? Because it's Scrabble, so it's Words with Friends. You can put any word you want down.
Well, what they did was they made everything around the game of Scrabble or Words with Friends Disney.
Okay.
So that's called Disney Spellstruck, and it's out now on Apple Arcade.
Solely on Apple Arcade. I tried to look this up for now.
Not on Android, I don't think.
Not on Android yet. They said it would be released later date.
But yeah, it's very similar to Words with Friends, except that they have an adventure mode, story mode, basically for single player.
Okay.
And it is Disney themed. You are unlocking new Disney characters. The one twist on the format, though, is that the Disney characters have powers that they can execute. You have like a super move that you can execute during your game of Scrabble. So far, the ones that I've seen so far are just Mickey adds letter score multipliers tiles to the tile. So it'll just be more than usual. So you'll like have more of those once that's activated. And you activate it by playing your tiles on certain highlighted tiles on the screen.
Board. Okay.
So it adds a little bit more strategy where you're not only just trying to make the best words you can, you also are incentivized to get that power activated to help you down the line.
Yes, but you don't want the other person to activate it.
Exactly. So you want it to prevent them from. So yeah, it's an extra level of strategy. So yeah, there's this adventure mode where you're going from like these Disney themed islands trying to unlock new characters and beat like boss characters. Then there's also the traditional play a friend. Christine and I started a game this morning where we're playing against each other, and that's just Words with Friends, but with that added strategy layer thanks to the powers.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. So yeah, if you want to play Words with Friends again and you like Disney characters, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you have iOS, check it out.
Now, is it are the powers strictly for adding to the board, or can you like change your letters or add certain exchange tiles?
That's a good question. So far, I've only encountered powers that add new tiles. I don't know if there's powers that like make it easier to swap or like give you more blank tiles or something like that. Mm-hmm. There very well could be. I don't know. I haven't unlocked that. It seems like there's a lot of characters to unlock.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's cool.
I hate that the review that I saw kept referring to it as a crossword game.
It's not a crossword game.
Yes.
Well, it's Scrabble. I mean, Scrabble is kind of a crossword game, but it's not. You're not solving a crossword.
Right, which is what I thought it was. Solving crosswords, like crossword, and then it says creative words with friends. Like, those are two different things.
It's words with friends.
You don't know what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's move on. Any other games we need to talk about?
No. I don't think so. No.
All right. Cool. Let's move on then into television, our next section here. And we always start the TV section with Sports Corner. First up, we have our Mr. Irrelevant for the year 2023.
Yeah, we do.
And that was Dejuan Johnson.
Defensive end, Mr. Irrelevant 2023 to the Rams.
Hey, these days, it's been proven that even if you're Mr. Irrelevant, you might have a decent career later.
Yes, and that actually goes into one of my points that I want to talk about from the draft. One of my takeaways from the draft this past week, lots of quarterbacks taken in that Saturday draft from the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds. Yeah. Lots of quarterbacks, lots of the Hail Marys. Hey, let's try and find the next Brock Purdy with our final picks here.
It's really opened up the depth of the draft where people are like, oh, you don't need all your first round quarterbacks. You can actually draft them further down and still have success down the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's instead of like stacking up on defensive ends or linemen, where that position is going to be more injured. So you kind of want depth there. They're trying to stack on skill positions, hoping they hit their $1 million lottery ticket with those late round picks. But congratulations to everyone who was drafted and to everyone who wasn't drafted and continues to have that chip on their shoulder and plays to their best abilities. And hey, who knows? Even you could be the next Austin Eckler.
You. Pointing into the camera.
Pointing at you, Austin Eckler, who wasn't drafted. And I laugh every time and remember that.
Damn.
As you run over me in fantasy because I will never draft you.
Meanwhile,
I won't draft you out of like spite. It's just because there's always other backs I'd rather have than you.
Yeah. Well, we got a while till see any of those players play. But for now, the hockey players are still playing because we have
some of them are still playing.
Yeah, some action in the NHL playoffs where your 2 number 1 seeds have both lost their game 7s and are eliminated.
So you remember last week how I said both number 1s were going into game 7s?
Well,
0 for 2.
So yes, your pick to win the whole thing, the Bruins are out.
Yes.
And the Avalanche have also been eliminated.
So congratulations to the Boston Bruins for not only setting the wins record and the points record, you also got eliminated in the first round.
Yep. Hate to see it.
Love to hate to see it.
Yeah.
Sucks for Beantown.
Meanwhile, in basketball, you have a winner for your regular season MVP award, Joel Embiid.
Of the 76ers. He gave a very tearful speech in which his kid also ran up and hugged him while he was giving his speech. So that's on YouTube if you want to see that, if you get some manly man tears flowing. But they are still in it for now. I think they're actually going up against the other Boston team, the Celtics, right now.
Yeah.
In the NBA.
And meanwhile, you have the California battle starting to brew.
Yes, the Lakers versus the Golden State Warriors. Golden State Warriors.
Yes. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out.
Well, we also have the Suns versus the Rockets. No, Utah. That's right, Denver. Denver Nuggets playing Chris Paul and the Phoenix Suns.
Delicious. I love Nuggets. All right, let's move on. As you mentioned, the XFL continues. We have the Arlington Renegades, who are 5-6, versus the DC Defenders, who are 10-1 for the championship game. How the hell did that happen?
Yes, you might be wondering, how the hell is a losing team, a team with a losing record, in the championship game? That's because they beat the number 1 team last week in the semifinals.
That makes sense.
So funny enough, the Arlington Renegades have themselves and former NFL quarterback in Brock Perez, who former quarterback for the LA Rams.
Yeah.
Going against the DC Defenders, who have quarterback Ben DiNucci, former quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
Hey.
So two former NFL quarterbacks going up against each other in the championship game. That happens as of this recording, Saturday. So we will have our champion next. We will announce the champion next week. But yes, there is a possibility that a team could go 6-6 in the XFL
and win
be the champions.
Wow, incredible! So look
chaos
to that. Yeah,
utter chaos,
total chaos. It's just the way The Rock wanted it.
Yep, Hollywood ending.
All right.
They handed out the scripts to everyone this morning.
Speaking of Hollywood endings, we had quite a game in the MLB. We had the Padres versus Giants in Mexico City.
Oh,
wild 16-11 game. That's a football score.
That's a football score.
That's a football score. I love to say that's a football score, but in this case, it really is. Well, not really. 11 is not a very common football score, but it can happen.
It can happen.
But yeah, so that was wild. Even wilder are our current standings in the league. Your Tampa Bay Rays and Baltimore Orioles are the big success stories right now. They're both under 10 losses each. And then at the way other side of the pack, you have the Oakland A's with only 6 wins. 2 of those secure against the Angels for whatever reason. And then the Kansas City Royals with 8 wins to their name.
And 2 of those against the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah. I know I'm jinxing this saying it, but hey, the Angels are on a 5-game win streak right now.
Yes, and now you jinxed it. So you can see the schedule here.
I know. Hey,
we're Houston is coming into town.
Houston's not as good as they used to be, though. So I have some feeling.
Hey, but they were good once as they ever was.
I'm just saying that the Rangers are better than Houston right now. Think about it that way, and how weird that is to say. And we beat the Rangers last night with a wild pitch, but still, we came back for a four-run deficit. I'll take it.
9th inning rally.
I'll take it. So yeah, it's chaos in the Major League Baseball scene right now. But hey, hopefully this will all shake out and make more sense in the coming weeks.
Hopefully, once the Angels play the Marlins at the end of May,
that
they'll be way ahead in the division.
And I will be there for the end of that season. Christy and I are going on the 28th for Beach Weekend.
Yes.
So
is that the City Connect jerseys?
I hope so. It would be weird if it wasn't.
Yes,
is what I would say. So I'm very excited.
Get excited because baseball and the summer of baseball is coming.
Fan appreciation tickets too. So $15 for 400.
Otherwise, NBA and NHL playoffs continue.
Yep.
And XFL and if you're so inclined, USFL.
Yeah, if you'd like that kind of thing,
will continue.
Cool. Anything else in sports before we move on?
In sports entertainment, it is Backlash weekend.
Oh.
So they are in not Mexico, Puerto Rico, I think.
Okay.
They're international.
Sure.
This for this round. I mentioned that because Bad Bunny will be one of the headliners.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, wrestler Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with singer Bad Bunny.
No, yeah, the same guy but different side.
Yes.
All right. Move on. Big, of course, thing we have to talk about.
I got to
stretch out.
I got to warm up.
Because it's time to talk about the biggest news in media right now, which, of course, is the WGA writers' strike.
All right. So now that we're loosened up, we're going to go out there and strike with them, right?
Yeah, join those picket lines. You can if you'd like. But yeah, so we're going to split this into 2 stories here. The first story will be establishing what's going on and then its immediate impact. So first up, yes, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the AMPTP, announced Monday evening that negotiations with the Writers Guild of America concluded without an agreement, which meant less than 1 hour later, the WGA released a letter to members that they would be going on strike. They had voted in favor of the strike weeks before. We
had talked about that. Yes. We had covered it. It was a 98% vote for the strike.
So the AMPTP has stated that it is willing to improve on its offer, but was not willing to meet some of the union's demands. The last strike, that started in November 2007, stretched 100 days into February of 2008. The Writers Guild put out a summary of the two sides' bargaining positions, in which it says the union's proposals would gain writers as a group about $429 million per year. AMPTP's offer is about only $86 million. A main sticking point is defining the cost of streaming. Many streaming shows have much shorter seasons, perhaps 8 to 10 episodes, rather than more than 20 with traditional TV shows. Many shows also employ fewer writers than were on staff in the past. All of that means less opportunities for writers to work and earn money. In addition, there's a big dispute on how writers are paid. Writers have traditionally gotten residuals when a show they wrote is sold to run again in syndication or on basic cable, but they're unlikely to get residuals, if any at all, when they create original content for streaming services as the current contracts stand today.
And it all revolves around two simple words. New media.
Yes.
Does streaming, as it stands right now, count as new media? Because that's the way it was written back in 2007.
Yeah.
When streaming just mainly included Netflix.
So yeah, the 2007 hinged on you're releasing our clips on YouTube.
Yes.
And stuff like that, because that was what was relevant at the time. Like, are we getting paid for those kind of things?
And the answer was no, because they define it as new media.
Right.
But now new media has become standard media with all these streaming services.
Yeah,
so
the argument...
how do you get paid?
The writers, it makes sense what the writers are saying. If most people are watching their shows on streaming services, it seems stupid that there's not some way for them to benefit from that. Because if it was built that they would benefit from replays on television, why is it different? Like, what is different about this? So the thing I want to talk about real briefly here, because I know we're going long, is that the studios don't seem like they don't see this as a problem as much as you'd want them to in order to get this agreement moving. It seems like all the statements that I've seen coming out of studios, I think one specifically from Paramount was really disheartening, which was like, we are not worried about, when asked basically if this strike will impact their content pipeline, they said, we're not worried about it impacting our content at all, is basically what they said. The writing's on the wall. They don't care. They are willing to put the writers in this situation for as long as possible because they already have enough unscripted, non-union content that they can just pump it out forever. They don't believe that the audience, people like us, will notice.
But we noticed.
But we notice.
Yes.
But I think, for example, your uncle who watches, I'm not saying your uncle specifically, but I was saying like so-and-so's uncle who watches Yellowstone, like, and like 3 other shows, like CSI, like, they're not going to notice, is basically what Paramount thinks. And it's going to take, I think, for the general public to notice a slump in quality or like a decline or effect at all for this to actually make a difference. Which goes into our second story here. There is an immediate impact that we're already seeing. So yes, just like in 2007, certain things will be affected by this, including award shows. And it just so happens that we have our first demo of this happening very soon, Sunday night, tomorrow night. The MTV Movie and TV Awards, recently expanded into television, I should notice, now has a massive gap in its scheduled programming. Drew Barrymore is stepping down as a host of the show in support and solidarity to the writers' strike. Sunday night's MTV Awards will still continue, but now will go hostless. The state of the show is still evolving day by day as producers pivot to their strike contingency plan and wait to see who among their presenters, nominees, and guests are still willing and able to appear on the telecast. Also, they mentioned that there will be a strike. There will be a picket line outside the show.
Yes. I noticed that late last night and this morning, when they were still running ads for the MTV Movie and TV Awards, Drew Barrymore no longer on those ads.
No, they pulled her completely.
Pulled them pulled completely.
Yeah. So the other thing that we've noticed, another nod to the evolving news, there will no longer be any red carpet or talent interviews before that show. And elsewhere in live television, you might notice, hey, what about Saturday Night Live? Aren't they in the middle of season?
Yes.
So yes, former cast member Pete Davidson was scheduled to host SNL on May 6th. Today, with musical guest Lil Uzi Vert. NBC has canceled that episode due to the strike and has shut down that whole industry. The late night show stuff, all pulled. The end of the season is supposed to see Kieran Culkin with Labyrinth and Jennifer Coolidge with Foo Fighters for the following 2 weeks. but they will not go forward if the strike continues through those weeks. Traditionally, SNL just shuts down. In 2007, they just ran repeats for the duration of the strike.
Yep.
Elsewhere for NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers do intend to pay their staffers of the networks tonight in late night shows 3 weeks of wages while the programs are sidelined due to the writer's strike. This is similar to what Conan did back in 2007 during that strike. Mm-hmm. He basically just paid for all his writers.
And that's because Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers were writers for SNL before they became cast members, before they became the faces.
So, of course, they're going to have solidarity.
Yes.
NBC plans to pay 2 weeks of salary to staffers, while each late night host will pay a third week out of their late night programs. Have also gone dark. Wait, that sentence didn't make sense. I skipped a line. Yes. Their own pockets and healthcare for the show's employees will be paid through September. Other late night programs have also gone dark, including CBS's Late Show with Stephen Colbert, ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live, and Comedy Central's The Daily Show, which, I mean, they're in between hosts anyways.
Yes.
HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher and Last Week Tonight also have stopped producing original programs during the strike. So, yeah, we will see immediately live stuff that's in production right now. I also just read this morning, season 3 of Hacks at HBO has stopped filming. Mm-hmm. They completely stopped due to this. So yeah, you'll see more of those stories coming out. You'll see the networks try to pivot as quickly as possible to reality television.
Yep. There's a lot of stuff, not just with TV, but with films as well that have stopped production, not just here in the U.S., but also in the U.K. in solidarity for it as well.
So yeah, we're only at the beginning. We're only scratching the surface of how long this is going to go. And yeah, I really, really hope the studios realize what they've done because it's going to be very quick that we're going to notice change. Mm-hmm. And I just really hope that fictional Yellowstone watching uncle I made up also notices, because it's going to take the mainstream to be freaking out in order for the studios to realize that the writers actually matter.
Not just that, but with the case of Yellowstone, if the studios are not willing to pay for their writers, you could see seasons and TV series just end. Yeah. Like the case of Yellowstone, which did officially get canceled after the upcoming 5th season, which has already been written, already been shot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've already lived through this with 2007, 2008, and the endless game shows that came from it, endless live streaming, like reality TV that came from it.
Yeah. But, there's not necessarily a negative to that. There's like a mixed bag. And I think we're going to see a mixed bag here as well.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on for time's sake. We'll talk more about the writer strike going on.
Especially if the coming weeks, when it continues. It's not an if, it's a when. You saw that number.
All right. So you watched the new season of Star Wars Visions.
Yes. Oh, because it was Star Wars Day. Happy Star Wars Day.
Yeah.
And so a couple of new Star Wars stuff was released, one of them being the second season of Star Wars Visions. This is the animated shorts based in Star Wars, but have different artistic styles with them. And I love this season more than I love the first season. I think this season focused more on the animation, while the first season focused more on the story elements and making sure that you understood that this was a Star Wars story, just told with different animation. Whereas this one was focused solely on the animation. You get a lot of that animation from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse inspired. You get an Arbin inspired one, which I thought was hilarious. You get a Coraline and a Kubo and the Two Strings of inspired one as well. You also get a complete rendered in the what is it? Oh, okay, what am I blanking on it? Unreal Engine 5. And all those light and particle effects, and it was amazing to see. They focused a lot on the artistic styling for season 2 compared to season 1, but they also didn't miss a beat with the story structure. I really liked season 2 a lot more than season 1. A couple of my favorites are the first one they did about the first episode titled Sith, where it was very colorful. It was in that style of Into the Spider-Verse. Lots of color, lots of white going into black, lots of just forging your own path and basically ultimately becoming the Gray Jedi without full on saying Gray Jedi. There's also, I really like the one in Arbin, which featured 0 Jedis, but was an ode to both pod racing and family. So it was a little bit like, oh, it's just like Fast and Furious, but it's Star Wars. That's hilarious.
That's fun.
But in the Arbin style. So like, everyone with the big smiles, the big teeth. I was like, that's hilarious.
Nice.
It's great. It's very great to see. And just overall, I mean, you do get your traditional ones that look like Akira, Attack on Titan as well. One really looked like My Hero Academia because it was part of like the Jedi school. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Seeing it in this kind of art style, but it's very fun to see that Star Wars breaks all boundaries. It's for everyone. And I think we've established that even last time we talked about Star Wars Visions, that the themes and the styles of Star Wars can be translated into any type of medium. And I really want them to continue doing these Star Wars Visions, especially with the different studios and the multitude of animation studios that are out there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love that they're doing this because it's like really cool to see different interpretations of that universe, because there's a huge amount of stuff that you can use in the Star Wars world.
Yeah, and not all of it is strictly like it has to be Jedi, has to be Sith related. No,
so much more.
There's so much more that they do, and I'm glad that they touch on it here in Visions, where not everything is about Coruscant or Tatooine. There's more to Star Wars or Kashyyyk. There's more to the Star Wars universe out there, and having Star Wars Visions outside of Dave Filoni allowed to be able to do this and see that that kind of inspiration grow.
Yeah, very cool. All right, anything else on TV that we need to talk about?
Nothing else new that I watched. I mean, I did watch the Peter Pan and Wendy on Disney Plus.
Oh, jeez, okay.
I mean, I don't know if I talk about the movies or TV because it's Disney Plus, but honestly, my really quick, brief thoughts on it. The color palette is bland, and it feels like they were stuck in a box.
Yeah.
So it goes with Disney copyright of these stories that Disney has copyright for, these fairy tales. You can use them in whatever instance you want. Like we see that with Pinocchio, public domain.
They're public domain to a certain extent. They're public domain, but the Disney owns the Disney version.
Yes. Yeah. So
they can only do the Disney version.
Yes. So that's the thing. Yeah. They can only do the Disney version, meaning that in this live action version, even in the credits, it says inspired, created by the original novel and the 1968 version. I was like, okay, so the film has to be specific enough to mimic the original animated version, both in terms of style, beats, and costuming.
58?
58, 68, 58?
I think it's a 50s film.
Okay, 58.
Anyways,
it has to be specific enough and contained within its own box, the Disney corporate box, that it never allows itself to be unique in any substance.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's what they got to do, I guess. It's what they got to do in order to retain the IP, because if you use any, if you try and break out of that Disney box, all of a sudden it's no longer a Disney IP because they can't re-copyright it because they've already established it based on the cartoon.
Is it really just a thing so they can renew that?
It has to be.
It must be. It's so dumb. Oh, whatever. Anyway, I just want to really briefly mention season 3 of Abbott Elementary wrapped up.
Okay.
Or season 2? Season 2, sorry. Yeah, so that's all taken care of. They actually did something with the will they, won't they by the end of that season, although what they do with it next season remains to be seen. So yeah, interesting stuff that they've done with this season, but a pretty strong season overall.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Cancellations and renewals. You don't have it written down, but you can scroll through it here.
Yes. Sorry, Johnson.
Canceled. Or no, I'm renewed.
Oh, yes.
For a 3rd season. So I'm back.
Yep.
I don't know what bounce is.
I don't know.
The Morning Show, meanwhile, has been renewed on Apple TV Plus, has been renewed for a 4th season ahead of its season 3 return this fall. Bosch Legacy, everyone's uncle's favorite show, and on Amazon Freevee, renewed for a 3rd season ahead of its season 2 return. Then we have The Diplomat, renewed for a second season on Netflix. 911 and 911 Lone Star, except different fates for them.
Yes.
911 proper, canceled by Fox after 6 seasons, but the show will move to ABC for next year's 7th season.
Yes.
Then 911 Lone Star, renewed on Fox for a 5th season. So will that mean you will see a Lone Star and 911 being on 2 different networks?
Yes.
That's wild.
I wonder, no, I want to say, you could get a 911 and The Good Doctor crossover.
Yeah.
But they're in 2 different cities.
That wouldn't work.
No. No, you could, though. Like, Good Doctor could visit LA.
Yeah, not going to happen. All right. And we also have Dancing with the Stars has been renewed for a 32nd season, but will move back to ABC after spending a year on Disney Plus as a streaming producer.
I guess the streaming plus did not work out.
Or ABC, in the midst of the writer's strike, wanted it back.
Probably.
Like, no, we need that now.
Well, this did happen on 5/2, so yes, probably that.
Yeah. We also have the 3rd and last season for Sweet Tooth on Netflix. The 3rd season has already been filmed.
Please note that is not Sweet Tooth of Metal Gear fame. That is Sweet Tooth of the Antlers.
Twisted Metal, not Metal Gear.
Yes, Twisted Metal.
And then, hey, I mentioned it earlier, Yellowstone will end with its current 5th season, which is currently on a mid-season hiatus. Yep. And a new spin-off series is to come.
Yep, they're looking at Matthew McConaughey for that new series.
Yeah. And then lastly, Call Me Kat. You know, the Mayim Bialik sitcom, canceled on Fox after 3 seasons.
Well, you know, she has the other sitcom, Jeopardy, that she's working on right now.
You see that they're going to do a Celebrity Wheel of Fortune with Mayim Bialik, Ken Jennings, and get this, Vanna White playing Wheel of Fortune.
Really?
Yes, they're all going to play against each other. I don't know who's going to touch the letters when she's in the seat, but I don't know.
Watson.
It's just going to be Pat Sajak
no.
running back and forth.
No, it's Pat Sajak's daughter because she's been doing all of the interstitials.
You're totally right. It is going to be Pat Sajak's daughter. I should have seen that coming. All right, that's it for cancellations and renewals. Let's run through movies real quick.
Yes.
Your number 1 movie this weekend at the box office was still the Super Mario Brothers movie with another $40 million. I feel like I'm saying that every week now. That's at $490 million domestic. That will pass $1 billion.
As of yesterday, it crossed
500
million domestically, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here.
Yes, we'll get there. Number 2, Evil Dead Rise with $12 million. That's at 44. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And number 3 with $6.7 million debut. Number 4, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, and its return to theaters as special event. $5 million.
Yes, that was a 40th?
Yeah,
40th anniversary special. And it made $5 million.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
And then John Wick Chapter 4 is number 5 with $4.8 million. That's at 176. Your other big premieres, Sisu is way down at number 10 with $3.3 million. Number 11, Big George Foreman, The Miraculous Story of the Once and Future Heavyweight Champion of the World. $2.9 million debut. No one wanted to see Big George Foreman.
Or his miraculous story of him being the once and future heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, all that. And the assassination of Jesse James by the coward. Anyway, upcoming this week, we have a couple of things for 2 different audiences. We have Book Club, The Next Chapter, which is the sequel to Book Club. If you want to see old ladies with a book club, go see this movie. And then also Rally Road Racers. I wonder what that movie is about.
It's an animated for your kids about road racers. This is still scheduled to come out, even though I have seen 0 commercials about it.
Yeah. Next week, of course, everything gets out of the way for Fast 10, but until then.
Yes, that is on the 19th. Yes. That is your Mother's Day release.
Right. All right, let's move on into some movie news, as you hinted at.
Speaking of Super Mario Brothers movie and it crossing the 500 million domestic mark.
It didn't only do that, it is also the officially first film of the year to cross the $1 billion global box office number. As of Sunday, after 26 days of release, the animated video game adaptation has grossed $490 million in North America and $532 million internationally. It's only the 5th movie of pandemic times to join the $1 billion club, following Spider-Man: No Way Home, Top Gun: Maverick, Jurassic World Dominion, and Avatar: The Way of Water. and it is the first Illumination and Universal animated title to ever jump $500 million domestically, not adjusted for inflation. That is saying that Mario was more successful in its first 26 days than Minions.
No, that's saying it's more successful
than the entire
run of
domestic
Minions,
run of Minions,
of Despicable Me, of Secret Life of Pets.
Wild.
Of
in 26 days.
Of any of the Dr. Seuss things that they've done.
Right, in 26 days. It is also now the second highest grossing animated film of all time domestically. Only below Frozen 2, I believe?
Yes.
Yes. So there you go. Big success. There will be more.
What?
Yeah.
No! Who could have seen that coming?
So the plan was I was supposed to see this. Christy and I were going to go. We ended up taking too much time getting ready, and we missed the showing.
Did you buy tickets?
No, I did not buy tickets until that was the other thing, is when I finally was ready to buy tickets, there was the only front row was left.
They were sold out. I wonder why. Where did those $40 million come from?
See, people still seeing it, turns out. All right, let's move on to our second story. In the wake of the release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3,
which we will talk about,
people are wondering about the future of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. Well, the future remains uncertain, as some key players are notably leaving the franchise. As previously reported, Dave Bautista will be stepping away from the role of Drax in any future installments. Also, Zoe Saldana has recently stated that she has no future plans to return to her role as well. While Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel have not said anything about their future, their characters are fully CG animated. So no one would think that they could potentially reprise their role, or they could think that they could reprise their roles as Rocket and Groot in future projects.
Mm-hmm.
They both have already lent their voices to the I Am Groot shorts for Disney+. So there's evidence of that. Lastly, Chris Pratt has gone on record saying he does not plan on doing another Guardians film without director James Gunn at the helm. That doesn't rule out any future supporting roles, like he has done with Avengers films or Thor, as those were directed by the Russo brothers and Taika Waititi, respectively. So who knows?
Ultimately, this does feel like the end of Guardians of the Galaxy as we know it.
Seems like that's the way that they've promoted it. It seems like that's the way the movie is written. Mm-hmm. It is a send-off for these characters in this current state.
Yes. As we say goodbye to it, well, let's talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah.
And I saw the Thursday showing for it with the audience, like all freshly hotly anticipating the end of what would happen to our beloved characters.
Yeah.
And credits rolled, and no one clapped.
Ooh.
Which was both kind of shocking and refreshing, because I'm glad that we're kind of out of the and everybody clapped
movies.
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Yes. But I did like Volume 3 a lot more than I liked Volume 2.
Yeah.
I will say that Volume 2 had more of a through thread through its beat to beat in terms of like talking about like fathers and like dads and like how your dad's not your father, or the person who raised you is not necessarily, or the person who was born you is not necessarily the person who's raised you.
Like a found family.
Message, yes. There's more through lines through that through Volume 2, which had a more cohesive story, but I did think some of the points in Volume 2 were a bit more loosely touched on instead of like a straight run through.
Right.
Which was the case with the first one, which was straight run through action adventure comedy of we're a band of misfits and we need to come together in order to defeat Big Bad.
Right.
The Pharaoh. Ramsey, Romanoff, whatever.
Who knows?
So, Volume 3 takes us at the end of both Endgame and Thor: Love and Thunder, where the Guardians are without Gamora, and Peter Quill is still heartbroken over it after all these years.
Oh, yeah.
So much so that it leaves him into a drunken stupor state where he's just angry at the world because basically everything has gone wrong with him. Like he's been abducted, he's been stabbed, he's died, he's come back, he's been in love, lost in love. Nothing ever seems like anytime he gets something good in his life, something immediately bad always happens and is always followed by it. Yeah. So he thinks like he's pretty much like doomed for this kind of lifestyle. So when he has the opportunity to save one of his best friends, then the story actually gets going. And it goes going in terms of taking one of the best characters in the series out of play.
Oh.
It kind of does the Superman thing.
Okay.
Where in both Guardians of the Galaxy films and even in the Avengers films, we see Rocket Raccoon helping Tony Stark build his machine, basically becoming the end-all, fix-all, like, I can fix everything. Mm-hmm. So, what happens if you take him out of the story?
Right.
Like, you can no longer fix things you can no longer rely on him to fix things, you have to fix things on your own. And the chaos that ensues from it. But let's also throw in old Gamora into the mix, because she will constantly be fighting with your lead character, because Star-Lord, Peter Quill, Chris Pratt, wants her to remember a life that she never had, but also keeps trying to force the life that he used to have.
Trying to rekindle that relationship, even though it's not the same person.
It's not the same person,
right.
And that person doesn't want it.
Right.
Well, it throws in the will they, won't they?
Right.
But at the same time, adds to the layers of, if this person is completely denying your advances, why are you still ignoring all the people who want your advances? All of your family, your found family, who wants and needs your guidance, who wants and needs you to be around. Why are you still chasing after someone who's no longer interested in you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a lot of extra layers in this film that I really like that they went into. Doesn't all play, though, on a consistent basis. I think that's where your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
Because when it hits, and it's good. But all the in-between moments do seem a little bit ebb and flow, up. Some highs, lots of lows. Some highs, lots of lows. I do like the music choices in here, especially when you start with the acoustic version of Creep.
I mean, it wouldn't be Guardians of the Galaxy if they didn't get the needle drops right.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing.
Yeah. But the thing about opening with that is that you don't really necessarily know who it's talking about. Like, is it talking about Peter Quill? Is it talking about Rocket? Is it talking about Gamora? Is it talking about any of the other Guardians? How they feel like they have this found family, but they still feel outsiders to the rest of the world.
Right.
So it does bring in, I need to start talking about the big bad here, the ultimate creator, who created Rocket Raccoon, how they have to go and like save Rocket Raccoon from him. Mm-hmm. So you get a lot of backstory of Rocket without having actual Rocket being incapacitated in real time, but at least you get that acting and that kind of like more backstory through the flashbacks.
Right.
Lots of this movie, it runs quite long, but at the same time, runs pretty fast. Because by the time we got to like the big ending, I was like, oh wow, this feels like we've been keep going forever. But at the same time, I was like, wait, this has to be the ending now. Like we get to like the big climactic battle here.
Do you feel like it was a good send-off for these characters?
I feel like it was more of a send-off to the characters than it was helping to build the MCU.
And that's good, right? Because I think that's why you see a lot of positive reception for this one.
Yes.
Because a lot of people's opinion about this phase has been like, all these seem like everybody's just spinning their wheels to set up the next thing.
Yes.
And this doesn't do that.
No. It does do the thing at the end where it did it at the end of Avengers Age of Ultron, where it's like, okay, the Avengers team that you know is no longer here, but we have the new Avengers team. Same thing here. We no longer have the Guardians of the Galaxy that you know, but we do have a new Guardians team.
At the end of it, there's like, okay, we could do something with these characters maybe in the future.
Yes.
But like the setup, everything that you knew, is like been dismantled over time.
And that goes in part with the story that we had right before this, where Dave Bautista, Zoe Saldana, and even Chris Pratt, your three live action characters, are not signed on to reprise their roles.
And also, even if that hadn't happened, you just got to stop at some point so it doesn't get stale.
Yes.
Because I think that you are at risk when you do like 4 or 5 of these kind of things, and it's the same thing every time. I'm glad that James Gunn realized, of course, also he's going through a professional transition as well.
Yes.
But I feel like also on like a creative level, it's still the right move just to be like, no, we had this was a moment. We told our story in 3 movies. We're good. And I think that's I respect that decision, because that's rare in these franchise days where everything just goes on forever.
Yeah, it's rare to see a finality of these characters that you've come with the past 9-10 years plus.
Yeah, plus
2014 was the first Guardian, so it filmed before that. So yeah, they've been filming these for 10 years in the same role, same capacity, and to be able to say goodbye and know that they're going to be okay. Is like, yes, it may not be the ending that you want to see, but it does a good enough job, especially in this third film, to say they're all going to be okay. They're all going to move on, and maybe the paths will cross eventually. If they don't, it was a moment in time, and they had their adventures.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm glad that they landed it. I'm glad that they it ends on that kind of note, because I feel like anything less the fans would have not had.
Yes.
So yeah, congratulations to James Gunn to finish, put a period on that sentence.
Yes, put a period at the end of the volume.
All right. Anything else, movies to talk about?
I
don't really have nothing.
I don't think so, no.
All right. Then let's wrap up the show with a fan question.
What? Oh, yeah, we were going to talk about this. I mentioned this. Yeah, last week.
We got this last week. We weren't able to do it, but we can do it real quick here. Question comes in asking, what crazy thing in media history did you never think would happen, but it happened?
A writer's strike.
I'll never forget when PT, the playable teaser, came up on the PlayStation Store out of nowhere, and it ended up being a promotion for a new Silent Hill game produced by Hideo Kojima and starring Norman Reedus. Parentheses, that never came out. In parentheses. But I'd like to hear what you guys thought were momentous occurrences in media history. Maybe your favorite band playing in a blockbuster movie. Maybe a remake of a game you thought was forgotten. I look forward to your answers.
I think one of the more recent ones would be Blink-182 at Coachella.
Yes, with Tom DeLonge in tow.
Yes,
that was definitely a moment I could see. Yeah,
like especially since when they broke up in 2007, you figured that's it. They never came back together. Especially when they brought in Matt Skiba to replace him for 2 albums.
Yeah, you never thought that they would stay together for the kids.
Yes.
Anyway,
it was a family reunion.
Try to think. I mean, there's some minor stuff. Like I feel like an easy answer is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate getting every single character that had been in the game, plus some wild choices, including like Sora and Cloud. Yeah. Like that's I think a good example.
So like Sephiroth, edition, Ridley, for example.
If you told somebody in like 2001 that there was going to be a game with all those characters in it, they would not have believed you. So that I think is a good example.
It's one of those like, here's a screenshot from the future, and it has all these characters like, nah, that's fake. There's no way they're getting that character.
There's no way that Sora from Kingdom Hearts is going to beat up on the villager from Animal Crossing.
There's no way you're getting Mega Man in your game. Like anytime they ever expanded that roster, you're like, no way they're actually doing that kind of crossover.
Yeah, so that I think that's definitely one of them. What else?
I think one in terms of like comic books, Avengers Infinity War, largely seen as a book as a comic that was unfilmable.
And they did.
Because of how much CG would be required, how much backstory would be required for all the characters. And yet, son of bitches, they did it.
Yeah, they did.
I remember even in 2012, when the first Avengers came out, I was very skeptical of it because you're taking characters who can run their own film and you're telling them you don't have to be a side character or you have to be on part of an ensemble.
Yeah.
That too many egos would clash for the Avengers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think broadly speaking, I think the current moment in movie animation we're having right now, where they're actually experimenting with animation styles, something I never thought would happen.
Yeah, it's Spider-Man Into the
Spider-Verse broke everything. Sony was willing to take a risk and it succeeded.
Yes.
And I think that's really broken open the creative freedom that artists have to put their stamp on movies. And that's awesome. I love to see that. And I thought it would never happen. So that's a really cool moment. What else? I think the Valve Steam Deck is kind of something wild that I never thought would become mainstream. The idea of having PC games in a handheld and not some sort of weird ass thing you ordered from an international shady website and have it to be a thing that people can buy and that works really well. That's awesome. And I never saw that coming.
Along something of those lines, just streaming in general, downloading games, like that transition in the late 2000s.
Oh, just having a digital game day one, where you don't have to pre-order from GameStop anymore.
Yes. You have to pre-order. You don't have to wait in line. No longer midnight release. You can wait for the clock to tick over to midnight or 9 p.m. if you're West Coast time, and be okay. You now have access to this game. Play it.
Yeah.
Even like when they did E3 announcements, it's like, here's this brand new trailer. By the way, you can go and download this right now and play it.
That stuff's cool, and I'm glad that we live in that kind of future world where that can happen. So yeah, I mean, sure there's more, but for the sake of time, that'll be it. Thank you for sending in the question. If you, the listener, want to send in a question for us to answer or feedback about the show, anything you want to say, email us at mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll read it on the air just like we just did right now. And with that, we're good. We're done. Let's wrap up.
Under 2 hours? What is this?
Somehow. Thank you for watching the Media Boat Podcast or listening to it. You can watch our episodes on YouTube. Our channel is Media Boat Podcast. Go there, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, all of that and more. We'll have plenty of shows for you to catch up on there. You can also listen to us in audio form on podcast services such as Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to podcasts. Search Media Boat Podcast and find our archive. You can also find us on social media channels like Twitter, where we're at Media Boat Cast. We don't have a Blue Sky, okay? Stop telling me about Blue Sky. I don't care.
The studio?
No. Oh. The Twitter equivalent.
Oh.
It's by the guy who created Twitter, Jack Dorsey.
Oh.
And it's currently only available invite only on iOS platforms.
Only iOS platforms?
Yeah, so you have to have an invite. I don't care. It's not going to replace Twitter. Nothing's going to replace Twitter.
Until Twitter goes up in flames.
Yeah, which will happen probably soon. We're also on Facebook. Search Mediaboat Podcast for that page. And we're on twitch.tv/Mediaboat streaming. Like I said, you can see archives of me playing Redfall and Jedi Survivor. That should be up for the next couple days. So check that out on twitch.tv/Mediaboat. This week we'll be back for more. Not sure what those games will be quite yet, but we will be back.
We'll be playing on Sunday, Monday. You said Tuesday, possibly.
I usually do Tuesdays, Thursdays. So those are my streaming days. I'll probably add calendar. Start to add to the calendar so that way that's up to date.
Okay.
All right, cool. That'll be it. Thank you for joining us for the Media Boat Podcast. We'll be back next week for even more.
Yep, we'll be back with more news, more notes, more thoughts, and more of us.
All right. See ya.
Okay, bye.
All righty. Wait a minute.
Yeah, that time stamp doesn't match.
Wait, why?
I don't know why. I gotta figure that out.
Uh-oh. Okay.